As our regular scheduled Daily Poster segment this week, we have a little bit of a special one because David Sirota, who we can put up on the screen, he joins us now to talk about his movie, Don't Look Up, which has gotten incredible reviews. You guys know has a ridiculous cast. We can put the tear sheet up on the screen here of the write-up over at the Daily Poster. Got a quote there that says, "Don't Look Up is here. This is the most prominent climate change movie, and it has the best cast ever assembled around this topic." That's not even opinion. That's just literal fact. David, welcome and congrats on the movie.
Congrats, David.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know it comes out today, so people can go and watch it on Netflix, which both of us are planning to do.
On watching it.
So just give us like a little bit of the rundown for people who don't know of the plot and how this all came together.
Sure. About 3 years ago, I was talking to my friend Adam McKay, who is the director of famous comedies like Anchorman, Step Brothers, also director of Big Short and Vice. And we were talking, and I said to him, "Listen, man, you got to use your superpowers of comedy to do something about on the climate crisis." And he said, "Yeah, I know, but I don't want to do something that's kind of Mad Max post-apocalyptic." And so we were spitballing ideas and going back and forth about different kinds of ideas. And at one point, I was lamenting the lack of media coverage, serious media coverage about the climate crisis. And I said, man, it feels like it's like an asteroid's headed towards Earth and no one cares. And he said, "Wait a minute, maybe that's the movie." And so we got to spitballing different ideas, and he then went to work on a script. And he kept saying, I got the script, and I gave him notes on the script, and he said, I think we're going to make this, and oh, hey, I think we got Leonardo DiCaprio interested, and Jennifer Lawrence interested, and I kept saying, yeah, okay, sure, right? I didn't kind of believe that this would happen, and then all of a sudden he said, no, listen, we're sending over the papers, you got to sign them because this is happening right now, and now here we are, a movie about this that's going to be available to tens of millions of people on Christmas Eve. On Netflix. And look, the idea of the movie is basically to try to address the climate crisis or to raise questions about it. It's hard to do it specifically on the nose with the climate crisis. It might be a better idea or a good idea to do an allegory. And the allegory is a comet is headed towards Earth, and two scientists are on a media tour, essentially, to try to warn the world and to try to prompt the government to act in defense of the planet and to do what is possible to do. And so this is their trials and travails trying to warn the world in a media and political system that no longer really constructively processes basic scientific facts.
Wow. David, I read Ben Smith's column in the New York Times, which talked a bit about the movie and how it was a media critique. Can you zoom in on that element too, around how you, because I assume you played a big role in exposing the media there. Talk to us about that part.
Sure. I mean, that is a central part of this movie, which is can our corporate media in the United States, is it able to even process facts that are uncomfortable, that are terrifying, or is our media constantly trying to frivolize and distract from the things that we need to be talking about? And you'll see scenes in this movie that will be very familiar to you. I mean, there's a central talk show that I don't want to give it away, but I think if you look at Tyler Perry and Cate Blanchett, you'll get the idea of which talk show in corporate media that it kind of takes its inspiration from. And there are scenes where the scientists are on this show trying to warn the world about this, and the hosts and the show are constantly trying to look away, to distract, to make it happy news, to make it fun news. And at one point, one of the characters says, maybe the end of the world isn't supposed to be fun. Maybe that's not supposed to be a happy news story, but we still have to focus in on it. And that's where this movie, it's a hilarious movie. I think people are going to be laughing most of the way through, but there's an underlying point here. And by the way, it goes beyond just climate change, right? I mean, when this movie was being made, it was a climate allegory, but then the pandemic came up, and there's been all sorts of rejection of basic science when it comes to that. And I think what it's really about is can we as a society anymore, when we have uncomfortable facts that we need to deal with, immovable facts, crises that are bearing down on us that cannot be negotiated with, can we even process them? Or do those facts become weapons in a culture war, a media war, a partisan war? And that's what's really scary, because we know we have all sorts of crises that we face, and we actually know we can fix a lot of them, or at least address a lot of them. But so often the solutions become the cannon fodder in all of these different culture and media wars, rather than things that we can stipulate and act on in a constructive way.
Well, when news is just infotainment and people are just watching it to sort of, the whole project is just to titillate people rather than really to inform and educate, you can understand why people don't really take it seriously anymore. So that even if the news anchor is like, no, guys, this is really serious, it's like, yeah, but you've been doing this like breaking news alerts and, sort of catastrophic theater for a long time about a bunch of stuff that didn't end up being a big deal. So when something that comes along that is a big deal, and you've been, trying to generate this churn of the 24-hour news cycle for so many years, I think that's the other part, is as a society, we have a little bit of a boy who cried wolf phenomenon going on as well.
I totally agree. And on top of that, there's a lack of faith in institutions, and that undergirds this movie in a lot of ways. I mean, you'll see there are comet deniers in this movie, like climate deniers. And I think part of that comes from the fact that we know we live in a society where there's a lack of faith in our government, both rightfully and in my view, wrongly. Rightly in the sense that, look, we have lived through, this generation has lived through so many moments where the government has delegitimized itself, from the Iraq war lies to the failure to deal with the financial crisis, to some of the things that have happened in the pandemic. We live in a society where you can see the government's obvious failures right in your face. At the same time, there's a political movement that has tried to constantly delegitimize the government, even when it's done obviously decent and good things. So that lack of faith in institutions means that even the most obvious facts of all, like let's say a comet headed towards Earth, that if you look up in the sky and you can see, there are now going to be people who won't believe that if the government says that's happening, because the government has been so delegitimized. By the way, the media has been so delegitimized. A lot of people not wanting to believe what the media says. And that is, I'm not saying part of that isn't correct and based in reality, but where does it leave us when we need to actually face up to basics?
Well, it's interesting because I think part of the problem is, I'm thinking this through in real time, a lot of the catastrophizing the media does is about stuff that actually isn't, like things that you should be panicked about or is invented. I mean, like like Antifa's coming to your town to like destroy your neighborhood or whatever. Like there was a whole panic around that, and they're trying to change your whole way of life. There's that. There's on the left, there's, like Trump and the P-tape and that whole thing. And then the things that were real problems and real disasters, like the wars and like the financial crisis, they didn't predict it. They didn't challenge it. They didn't, expose it. They didn't catastrophize and properly educate and warn people about the things that truly did end up being complete and utter disasters. So yeah, when you look at that's going to erode trust in media. That track record is going to erode trust in media.
And of course, in a lot of those things, the media was complicit. I mean, the media wasn't just not covering it. The media was part of it. And look, we see that today. I mean, look, how many corporate media outlets do you watch where they barely ever talk about climate change? And many of them are sponsored by the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry that is creating the problem. So when scientists are trying to say, hey, this is an enormous problem happening right now, it's not a forum that's all that interested in covering those issues. Now, there's one other theme in this movie that I think is worth mentioning as we discuss this, which is the idea of technology. There's a theme in this movie where you'll see that there's this idea that we don't have to change our society. We don't have to really mobilize much of anything because technology will save us. And I think that's a very reassuring message to a lot of people in our current media and political landscape. Hey, climate change, for instance, doesn't mean we have to really change much of anything. Somebody somewhere, some tech genius, is going to figure out how to solve this. So we don't really have to do much of anything to change our culture, to change our society. And without giving anything away, you'll see in the movie kind of indicts that whole idea. This idea that technological triumphalism will save us without us having to do much of anything. And the movie kind of pokes fun at that in a very dark way.
David, what's this been like for you personally?
Oh, it's been surreal, frankly. I mean, to see an idea that we spitballed, 2-3 years ago, now going out on a platform where tens, if not potentially hundreds of millions of people can see this movie with all of these celebrities, these amazing actors in this movie. It's really hard to believe it happened. And I want to say one last thing about that. This movie is filled with it's like the most incredible cast you could possibly imagine. And I want to express some real gratitude to these stars for actually being willing to be in a controversial, politically risky film that raises these deep questions, that they are using their platforms to try to sound a huge alarm. Now, I'm not saying they're martyrs or anything like that, but I am saying it is relatively rare for people with real cultural cachet, people with real star power, to actually risk using that star power, risk using that celebrity to do something serious. So I feel great gratitude to that cast, and great gratitude, of course, to Adam McKay, who, among the most prominent example, used his platform, is putting his career essentially on the line to actually try to deliver these really important messages.
Yeah. Wow.
Congrats, David. We can't wait to watch it. I urge people to check it out. The reviews have been really, I think a lot of people in our audience will find it really thought-provoking, and it will land
Can't wait to watch it, man. Thank you.
So congrats and happy holidays. Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. We'll have more for you later. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.